Want to show you the latest now illustrating the fighting ongoing between Israel and Hamas. Images into us showing an explosion at the al-Shifa hospital, which is the largest hospital in Gaza. Hamas says the hospital was hit by an Israeli strike. Israeli military has not yet commented, but has confirmed forces are operating near the facility. Israel says Hamas operates a major command center beneath that hospital. Let's bring in Briar Stewart, who has joined our CBC News team covering the war between Israel and Hamas. And Briar is in Sderot, which is closer. We were talking to Briar from Jerusalem. This is much closer. She is just a few kilometers from the border with Gaza. And Briar, I was just showing some of that video. Can you tell us more about the reports of explosions at not just al-Shifa, but at several hospitals today in northern Gaza?
That's right. The fighting, Heather, has really intensified around a number of hospitals. And just to kind of set up where I am here, I'm going to step aside to the moment because what you're seeing is in the distance there, the buildings about 10 kilometers from where I'm standing. That's Gaza City. And we know that through reports that the Israeli military has surrounded the largest medical facility in Gaza. That's the al-Shifa hospital. That's the one where there was the reported strike outside in a courtyard overnight. Now, as you mentioned, we do not have any confirmed figures around how many were wounded or how many were hurt, but obviously there has been an intense escalation of fighting. And that's not the only hospital where there have been reported strikes. Another hospital is under bombardment, which is what the World Health Organization has said, and that's a pediatric hospital. Now, Israel says that they are looking and targeting these hospitals because this is where Hamas has based some of their operations. And in fact, they say that under the al-Shifa hospital, that's where Hamas has its command center and also areas where they have used for fuel storage. So obviously, it's a priority for Israel as they try to just eliminate Hamas. And we know that so much of their offensive is focusing on the tunnels that run underneath Gaza City. Israeli Defense Forces said earlier this week that they destroyed around 130 tunnels. It's not clear how many tunnels there are. Hamas has said before that they had 500 kilometers of tunnels running underneath the city. So obviously that's where Israel's military has been really targeting. And what they keep saying is that Hamas is using people as human shields, building their operations underneath these facilities. Hamas has denied that, but clearly we're seeing this intensification of fighting around the hospitals themselves. And at the same time, the U.S. officials have announced that Israel is going to pause fighting for 4 hours a day to allow the hundreds of thousands of people who are still in the north to evacuate to the south. It's not clear whether or not when that pause will be. We know that in recent days, Israel has set up humanitarian corridors for people to go along the roads to the south. But I can tell you, standing here, there's not a pause in fighting. I mean, we can still hear the jets. We can see the airstrikes. So that pause that U.S. officials had been talking about earlier has certainly not kicked into effect yet.
And Briar, I want to ask you something else, but just as you've been reporting to us, Hamas has indicated that 13 people died in that airstrike on al-Shifa. Of course, that's not something we can verify independently, but Agence France Presse is reporting on that. No formal comment, no immediate comment from Israel's military so far, but we will await that today. You are watching, obviously, Gaza so closely, but the West Bank is also preoccupying. There have been more violent, deadly clashes. Tension has escalated. What is the latest there?
Yes, and at least 18 people were killed in the West Bank overnight in clashes with the Israeli Defense Forces and as well with Israeli settlers, and particularly in the area of Jenin. Israel said that they launched a counterterrorism operation there, that they deployed a drone. But really what we're seeing is just an escalation of violence and tension that had been building for months. In fact, even before the October 7th attacks, this was the deadliest year in the West Bank in terms of how many Palestinians had been killed by violence. Since October the 7th, the UN says more than 170 people, Palestinians, have been killed. And today, the UN Commissioner for Human Rights spoke about the need just for there to be measures taken by Israel to ensure that civilians are protected.
To appeal as a matter of urgency for Israeli authorities to take immediate measures, to take steps to ensure the protection of Palestinians in the West Bank, who are being on a daily basis subjected to violence from Israeli forces and settlers, ill treatment, arrests, evictions, intimidation, and humiliation.
That the violence in the West Bank could flare up even more and create another front in this war. But obviously right now we are looking at the situation in Gaza, what's unfolding in the distance behind me, and particularly all of these reports of Israeli Defense Forces encroaching on these hospitals where we know there are wounded and also thousands of people sheltering because they've been displaced.
Breyer, thank you very much, and good to have you as part of the CBC News team. We will look forward to your reporting there as you cover the war. Breyer Stewart now in Sderot in Israel, right close to the border with Gaza.